How are we doing?
Feels good now.
You're
Fancy intro.
oh sure now. If I don't have a fancy intro, I'm as well give it up. How are we doing?
Not too bad.
Good now. Good. We have a few more, and we have a few who signed up for the recording. They may join later on if their schedule has changed. Just make sure everything is working. We have the desktop there. We have a few new gizmos here. So Linda, tell us more. Where are you at with creating courses or creating videos for courses or?
So, I am developing a product I'm launching my new website, new company name, and all that in the next week. Developing a new monthly subscription offering of new content every month, where it's a pre-recorded discussion or chat with Keith Walsh from 2FM hosting it, myself kind of giving a therapist input, and a special guest each month, a new guest on the panel, somebody who's like a high achiever, somebody you'd look up to. Here's a load of people now. But anyway, yeah. And so I have an intro and an outro for it, and there's a developer putting a portal together for all that. But I suppose the reason I'm here is because when I do workshops, they ask and they have a recording, and because it's mental health, I'm not too keen on that, and what I'm trying to do is give them a summary video, but I haven't got very efficient on doing that. So
Okay.
I'm hoping to get some tips.
Okay. So, and have you plans to create a pre-recorded course then?
Well, it's not a course as such. Yeah. I haven't. No, I haven't. That's up in the air.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure.
But that's definitely something else. It's kind of like a podcast conversation that's coming out monthly. That's my first step into Evergreen.
Okay. So it's premium content, and hence the charge.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like, so it has an informal discussion kind of chat, but there's all mental health themes streaming through it, and the person is very inspiring, but it normalizes vulnerability in people, no matter how successful they are. And then I give a slide deck kind of backing it up with some kind of mental health information and resources. Okay,
great. And Helen, where are you at with your course?
I have my spider graphs done now, and like the content is fixed, and I'm basically just ready to start recording now.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
What's your field, Helen?
I'm a life coach, and it's a course for young people to give them all the stuff that we wish we knew between 18 and 30 on how to plan their lives and self-esteem, self-confidence. That's kind of
great. Okay.
Thanks very much.
And Sheila.
My internet here is terrible, Johnny, so I actually went on the laptop, and I'm not sure how good it's going to be on the phone, so I could be coming and going for a while.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I don't know if Sheila's with us. She has her hand up there. I don't know if she can hear us, or hopefully she can join us. Great. Okay. Yeah, we may have more. We've quite a few signed up, but quite a few want the recording, so they'll be watching back in their own time. But good to be here live, because you can get your questions answered live, and hopefully I'll be able to answer them. So I'm just going to hit the record, make sure that's working as well.
Recording in progress.
Okay, so just that you're aware, the recording will only go to yourselves, essentially. So I won't be using it on YouTube or anything else like that. Okay, so just to take you through the curriculum, if you like, for today, or the topics we're going to cover, I'm just going to spotlight that for everybody. If it's not full screen, guys. Yeah, just mute Helen. Yeah, if it's not full screen, guys, as you probably know, just go view and speaker view. Okay, but hopefully it's spotlighted. Linda, can you let me know if it's full screen? Okay, perfect. And I'm here as well, just in case you think I went anywhere. So it is live. And I've decided to go with Prezi for today, as opposed to PowerPoint. So what we're going to look at first of all is we're going to look at intros, okay? That's a key piece to get going with your video lessons. And within the intros, we're going to look at literally a number of scripts that you can cut and paste into your own. I don't necessarily have the rights to them. Some I've picked up over the years, some are some of my own and insights and stuff like that. So we'll be going through that because it's a big challenge for people to kick off a video lesson without, they don't feel like they should get really into the instructions straight away, and that's actually right. So we'll be going through the intros. The next one then we'll be looking at is the actual instructions. So that's the middle piece of the lesson. So we've kind of set the scene for the course video as to what this particular lesson is about, and then we're going to get into the main piece, if you like, which is the simple steps. And the reason I've left so much space on the screen here is that we will fill out some of this as we work through it, particularly for your own specific scenarios, okay? So after that then, or actually on that, you see it there, one problem, one solution is a key part of the video lesson, okay? So we're not going to create a very long, convoluted, complicated lesson. We're going to create a lesson, essentially one problem, one solution, and I'll explain a little bit more about that as we go through it. And then the third piece then, it's like a good play. You have the beginning, middle and end, and the video lessons are the same. You would finish typically with key takeaways from that lesson, and then you would excite people about the next lesson. And that would apply as well possibly for yourself, Linda, where you do some key takeaways from the episode, and if you do know what's in next week or next month's interview, you excite people. It's one thing to say, and tune in next week for more great whatever. Yeah, that's good, but particularly in online courses, we would say something like, and in the next lesson we will take you through exactly how to X. Okay, so ultimately what we're looking to achieve is that it's like a good Netflix box set, as I've referenced before, that hopefully people are kind of binge watching because they're so excited about what's coming up next, and they are the outros. We'll also talk about scripting and using speech to text as a very efficient way of scripting out your video lessons. Now, in a live scenario, I don't use scripts, I don't use the teleprompter, but in a pre-recorded scenario like we're talking about this morning and making pre-recorded course videos, speech to text is a very efficient way of doing your scripts, and then scripts are a very powerful thing to have when recording your lessons, combined with a teleprompter. It just means that you're going to get the key points across when you watch it back, because you've proofread the script. It should have everything in it that you wanted to say. If you don't have a script, for example, and you leave something out, you have to redo the video, or you have to try and insert a piece that you really wanted in it. So the time you invest in scripting is saved over and over by not having to edit. And really, one of the key things about today is recording videos as efficiently as possible. Like the tagline is recording them in half the time. In fact, it's more like a third of the time, and I'll explain why it's a third approximately as we go through it. So scripting is a key piece that we'll talk about as well. Then we'll get into recording, the importance of being on camera, a couple of tips around that in terms of things you can do to up your game, if you like, in terms of your production and using free software like OBS or vMix is what I'm using now, but you can do something similar with OBS, which means that you can pre-program your keyboard, or you can pre-program a switch that allows you to do what we call pattern interrupt, which is the next section. And pattern interrupt is where you avoid people becoming climatized to your presentation, and you kind of switch from the slides, if you're using slides, to the training room, or you switch from the training room to being actually in the slides. And when we're in the slides, we might actually move over to a different part of the screen, and then we can give them a break from looking at us and give ourselves a break from being on camera without actually having to turn off, particularly in a live scenario, without having to turn off the actual video and disappearing into the corner. Ecamm is for Mac, vMix is Windows only, and OBS is both. So that's just that part. What we'll be going through in detail is the recording. And as I mentioned, we will be also looking at pattern interrupt as well. So it's really about maintaining energy and engagement. And I remind people over and over that we need to be mindful of the fact that people are taking your course at the kitchen table or the home office or the office or the train or wherever it might be, and it's not the traditional offline classroom environment in which we grew up in or continue up pre-COVID for the most part have been taking live courses in. So we need to compensate for that lack of energy, because when people are in a room together, there's energy, and energy is infectious, and it maintains a particular level within the room, and you can do that when you're there with them. So it's a key piece to be mindful of, that we need to be to deliver with energy and to be engaging, and pattern interrupt definitely helps with that. The next piece then is jingles. Whether a lot of people ask, Johnny, should you have jingles at the beginning of each? I know in radio, and for branding and for anchoring people's brain into a brand, and Intel have their patented jingle and so on, and radio stations have theirs. So we'll just talk briefly about the pros and cons of having jingles, if you like, intros with music and logos at the beginning, and in some cases the end of each lesson. Okay. Then we'll get on to some Q&A, but please feel free to unmute. You can say your name if you wish, just that I can direct my focus to you on the screen, or just to know who is asking. So you can do that at any stage, but at the end, as we're wrapping up, we'll have time for Q&A. So if you do want to leave some of your questions to the end, that's fine. But if you want to ask at the time that we're talking about, that's fine too. If I feel that the answer is going to take a little bit longer, for example, then we can take it offline, email, jump on a Zoom together, whatever it takes to answer your questions, okay? And what's really important, it's not necessarily the end, but I would invite you to write down at least 3 actions. Feel free to take copious notes. You will get the recording both in video and in audio, so you can go for a walk and listen back. I'll split it up into a couple of chunks rather than a 2-hour sitting, but you will be able to watch it back. But I would encourage you to make your own notes, and particularly on how it's going to apply to you. What are you going to get from this? But writing down a couple of actions is a great way to get going after any course or any presentation or any masterclass, where if you take one of them, you're going to get a bit of momentum going. So I encourage you to take notes, but I would invite you to write down at least 1, but ideally 3 actions. It might be I'm going to download OBS and give it a go. I'm going to order a light from Amazon or from whoever that I've been meaning to order. I'm going to look at taking my camera up to eye level for better engagement. Whatever it is, the smallest of steps as a result of the training is something that gets you going. Leaving it till a month's time or whatever, okay, if the schedule is packed, so be it. But that month can become 2 months and 3 months and so on. So I would invite you to take the smallest of actions to get going, and you can write those down as we go through it. Okay? Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything missing from that you expected, or it might be a bit early to say? Is in broad strokes, is that what you expected to see from signing up? And all the emails you might, a few emails you might have got from me.
I'm just hoping you might point us to the software and the equipment as well as the concepts, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and remind me if I don't, but we'll definitely can do a whistle stop tour of the equipment for sure. Okay, and I'm going to make an attempt to use my new stylus and pen, but I have to admit that my handwriting has deteriorated dramatically over the years. But let's see how we go. Is it going to even write for me? Probably is. The reason I use it is for those of you who can write, and I'm sure you can write better than me, it's another form of pattern interrupt as well, where we just switch from slides. So we're going to talk about intros, and as I say, this is recorded, so you can listen back and actually use these specific scripts. So the first thing is to welcome people, but not necessarily to every lesson. Okay, so primarily toward the beginning, you welcome people to the course, and that would be in the introduction section. So the introduction section, the welcome section, is before the actual curriculum. Okay, so the welcome section of your online course would be things like congratulations for signing up, to reaffirm them that they've made the right decision, to of course thank them for signing up, and to share with them a little bit about why this course is right for them, who it's actually right for, how they can get the most out of the course, and as I say, a little bit about yourself as well, just to remind them that you are an authority in the subject. So it's all about reaffirming that they've made the right decision. Okay, and you're setting the scene, if you like, or you're setting a good environment for them to continue. Okay, to go, yeah, this is the course, I'm glad I bought it, yeah, this is the right course for me based on what I've seen. How to get the most from the course, you might share with them, for example, that while this is a pre-recorded course, we would invite you to treat it like an offline course. In other words, with an offline course, typically it happens at a specific day and time and we turn up. So we would invite you to do that with this course as well. In other words, to set a date and a time in the future and subsequent dates and times when you're going to turn up to complete the course.
Alice.
Okay, so some people might binge watch it, do the whole 2 hours. Some might do a half an hour a day for 4 days. So you're just, again, setting the scene so that they will complete the course, because you are relying on people's own discipline to take a pre-recorded course. Okay? Now, of course, you're relying on their discipline to turn up live, you're relying on their discipline to turn up at a workshop, you're relying on their discipline to tune into your membership content, etc. So just be mindful of that. So whatever you can do to to increase the chances of that happening, then I would suggest you do it. Okay? It is typically, unless you're training kids or students, it is typically adult learning, so we need to be mindful of not to be condescending or make sure you do your homework now or you won't get any dessert. We don't do any of that in adult learning. But at the same time, people don't mind being held accountable, so it's good to give them a couple of tips on how they will be successful in completing the course. So that's the welcome section. The intro then that we're talking about is the intro of every lesson thereafter. We're now getting into the curriculum. So the welcome is kind of the softer kind of stuff. When we get into the curriculum, we're looking at teaching, training, giving instruction, and that's the intros we're going to talk about now. So in the earlier intros, welcome, that's fine. But typically what we do is we set the scene. So what we're going to do is, in this lesson, we are going to show you how to do X. The reason that X is so important is because you can also say the benefit of X. You really want to remind them, why is this important? Okay? Why do I need to know what you're about to tell me? That's what makes a great intro. So, welcome to lesson 3, or welcome to how to set up a green screen, as an example. And you might say, the benefit, or one of the big benefits of having a green screen, allows you to have more flexibility with your background, particularly in a confined space. And they may go, excellent, because I want to be able to change my background and I work in a confined space. This is the lesson for me. You want to set the scene. You want to just be always thinking that they're always asking, what's in it for me? Why do I need to know this? And it's a great question to ask yourself to keep yourself on track, that you don't get into unnecessary content in your online course. Of course, there's always that balance of, well, what's unnecessary when I don't know what they don't know. But just be mindful of, being short and to the point with your lessons. So they are great intros, okay? Welcome to lesson 2. Why is it important? Okay? We're going to go through it step by step. One of the major benefits of X is, and you can use a combination of these throughout your course. So I'm not suggesting that it's so prescriptive that every lesson starts with the exact same wording, because that will climatize people and it'll be a little bit boring and repetitive over time. So the ones that we're going through here, you could have a list of them on your wall and say, I'm going to use number 2 in this lesson, and I'm going to use intro number 1 in this lesson. You can develop your own intros based on what I am going through here, and over time then you can kind of mix and match. It's the same with the outros. The middle piece we'll get to in a couple of minutes, which is specific to your own content, but we have some tips on that as well. The other thing in the intro then, not only the benefit, but the consequences of not doing it. Or the consequences of doing it badly. Okay? So not only the benefit, because that's people were thinking, oh, that's a good benefit. But when you strike a chord with people from a pain point of view, they'll be even more likely to be excited about doing that lesson and taking your instruction. So for example, let's again take the green screen. The benefit of having a green screen allows you to have more flexibility with your background, particularly in a confined space. However, a lot of people still get it wrong for the following reasons, or when they get it wrong, it does more harm than good. Just striking a chord with them that I'm going to watch this lesson because I might think I know what I'm doing, but I may still be getting parts of it wrong. I'm going to watch this lesson. So we're really setting a good framework for them when they turn on that lesson and every other lesson thereafter. They're excited to learn. They see the benefit. They see how it applies to them. They see the consequences of not doing it or doing it poorly. Okay? And they make for good intros. Okay? You can say things like, most people skip this step because they think. However, when they do, they start to realize X. In this lesson, we're going to go through this. And you can use a combination, and I'm sure based on those pointers, you'll be able to come up with different language, but the message is the same. The question is that we need to address in the intro, why do I need to know this? Now you'd hope, because they've signed up to the course, that they know why. But when they get into the lessons, they need to be reminded. It's back to, I don't know if I need to know this. So it's back to maintaining their interest, their engagement, their excitement to learn, because these lessons are important and the intro does that. Now, as we get into the instruction, but it's important as part of the intro as well, I mentioned one problem, one solution. We shouldn't in our intro come on and say, in this lesson I'm going to show you how to take this mouse apart, how to put it back together, how to put in the batteries, where to get the batteries, what batteries to buy, what shop to buy. They're like, hold on a second now, what? So you come on and say, in this lesson we're going to show you how to take this mouse apart. And if that's a 60-second lesson or a 2 or 3 minute lesson, whatever it takes to do it short and to the point, that's fine. People say, oh sure, why would anybody watch the 60-second lesson? Because it's part of a course. And if actually they learn something in 60 seconds, they'll be pretty happy with you, because so long as they can do it. We don't want to overwhelm them in the intro by a big litany of what we're going to cover in this one lesson. How to put it back together will be in the next lesson. And we'll get to that in outros. So in this lesson, we're going to show you how to do X. One problem, one solution. The benefit of knowing how to do this, or the benefit of doing this, or the benefit of mastering this particular activity is, and when we do it, when we don't do it or do it incorrectly or poorly, here's what can happen. Okay? You might even take it a step further, and it's always good in your courses, and indeed your live content, your memberships, to make it real for people by using examples. For example, I might say something like, I remember thinking that I had enough lights and that the green screen was grand. Or I had a client who, happily shared with me the consequences of not doing X. They thought, whatever. And here are the consequences. To make it real. To take it from the theory into the real world and into practice. Okay? So that can be another part of your intro. Now, when, I've spent a few minutes, you might think, God, this intro is about 10 minutes long. No. Pick any one of those sentences and mix them up as you go through the course. You don't have to use them all at the beginning of every lesson, in every intro. So one or two of any of the sentences I've gone through, plus I'm sure you have variations of your own, as I mentioned, so long as the key question is answered. Why do I need to know this? Okay, why do I need to know this? Then we get into the middle piece. Okay, and the middle piece is all about your own instruction. Okay, your own instruction. So that is about, if we go into the middle, it is your own instruction. Okay, in other words, you're now getting into your specific area of expertise. Okay, apologies about the handwriting. So you're just going to say, in this lesson, you said what you're going. You say, welcome to the lesson about taking a mouse apart, and then you get into the steps. So the first thing we do is we turn the mouse around and we get us through whatever it takes. So you're now getting into simple, clear instruction. Okay? Short and to the point, possibly where appropriate, you break it down into 3, if that makes sense for what you're teaching. But please do not fall into the trap where the lesson is so convoluted and has so much in it that as they're going through it, they're starting to forget the earlier parts. Okay?
What do you mean when you say break it down into 3?
So even though we're going to take the mouse apart and it's a simple instruction, in some cases it may need to be broken into 3. So step 1, turn the mouse over. Step 2, get your screwdriver and unscrew the screw. And step 3, slide off the cover.
Okay.
If that makes sense for your curriculum. Okay? So people like to learn in 3s. The brain is programmed into 3s. Emergency numbers are 3s, 911, 999. Simple as ABC, simple as 1, 2, 3. You never hear simple as 1, 2, 3, 4, or I know my ABCDs. It's 3s. The brain likes 3. So where it makes sense, it's nice to use that 1, 2, 3. It's also great for doing education-based marketing videos. Okay? So 3 little steps. Okay? So that's the middle piece. And then we move to the outro. Okay? We move to the outro. And this is what makes up your entire lesson. Okay? Now there's an additional intro as you get further on for checking in with your students that I'll go back to, but it's as we get further into the curriculum. So let's finish the outro, and it'll make sense then how we can tweak the intro. So the outro is really important. Not only can you, and possibly should you, depending if it makes sense for what you're training, is to identify a key takeaway or 2 or 3, but no more. So keep that in 3s as well. So the key takeaways from this lesson is, when using a green screen, number 1, get a quality screen. Number 2, make sure your lights are in the right position. And number 3, use a background that represents who you are and what you do, as opposed to trying to pretend you have this lavish office or house that you don't actually have. Okay, so the 3 takeaways are a great summary for people to go, right, I must go off now and get me lights, or I must find a background on unsplash.com, or I must get one made from somebody on Fiverr or whoever. Okay? But the next critical piece of your outro is getting them to watch the next lesson. We don't finish with, see you in the next lesson. So again, going back to a green screen example. So now that you know how to do A, B, and C, or the key takeaways are A, B, and C, in the next lesson, I'm going to show you step by step, that's power language, or exactly, more power language, where to stand when using a green screen. I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson. So they're going, geez, you know what? I never even thought about where I should stand. Or that's one of the lessons I signed up to this course for. Or I'm going to keep going. You really want them to keep going. It's like that cliffhanger at the end of a Netflix box set, and suddenly it's 4 o'clock in the morning and you're going, one more episode. You want your students to be doing the same. One more lesson. I'm going to watch one more lesson. Okay? We need to excite and encourage them to keep going. Okay? So the outro is, it's kind of made up of 3 pieces. You might mention the key takeaways. You excite them about the next lesson. And the third piece of the outro is, and that's if you provide a Q&A facility within your online course. And if you do, you'd say, and remember, if you have any questions, feedback or comments about this or any lesson, please use the members area below this video and I will personally reply. And I picked up the word personally from another instructor, not that they have a patent on the word, but when they said personally, it just added to that overall personable support. Okay? So the outro, very quickly in 10 seconds you can say the entire thing. Takeaways if you want to summarize and share the takeaways. Okay? Excite them and encourage them to take the next lesson by mentioning what's going to be in it. Not the entire lesson, but just a nugget that's going to excite them, and use power language. So in the next lesson, I'm going to show you exactly, or we're going to walk through together how to stand when using a green screen. So the outro doesn't go through in detail what's in the next lesson. If you can identify one of the critical things that is going to be in that next lesson, you just say it. And the third piece of the outro then is, and if you have any questions, feedback or comments, because it's not about questions. It's not about just questions. Have you any questions? No. Okay. You want to embrace feedback, particularly for your first course. You want to embrace feedback. If they've no questions, they've no questions. But if you only ask them to, or invite them to ask their questions and they don't have any, you don't gather or garnish any feedback. And that's real gold to help you to tweak and recalibrate and improve your course. Now, if the feedback is quite specific or a bit even nitpicky, like, I didn't like the colour of your shirt, say, well, I'm no style guru, so I'm sorry about the colour of my shirt. So leaving that kind of feedback aside, and it's unlikely you'd hear that, but embrace feedback. So invite feedback. Now, there are course creators who don't allow for questions, and that's their prerogative. But if you are an instructor, a course creator, or indeed the interviews for premium content as part of your membership, I'm sure you could mention what people can do. How can they ask a question, or how can they... And in some cases it might be, for example, if you take a podcast, it's like, we'd love you to leave a review on iTunes or something like that. But in a course, ideally you would encourage, invite and ask for not just questions but comments and feedback. Because feedback, they might go, I don't know if I have any feedback. Comments might be an easier thing for people to consider in their head. Okay? Is that making sense? And when you make a list of these and type them out as your intro, you can number them and say, I'm going to use number 2 or intro A today in this lesson and intro B tomorrow. Now, as you start to create your course, you can add to your intro. But the only reason you can do it further on is as follows. And it's what we call a little bit of repetition, because repetition helps people to learn. Not so much that it gets repetitive, but repetition helps people to learn. And accountability, particularly in an online course. So we use terminology to check in with people in our intro. So if there's 5 sections in your course, even in section 2, in some of the lessons, you would say something like, at this point, you will now know how to. Not, you should know how to, because that's kind of giving them a little bit of, sure, if you do, you do, and if you don't, you don't. We want to hold them accountable. So if they're at that point in the course, they should know how to set up a green screen, use a digital whiteboard, whatever you've taught them. So that's where your intro can be updated slightly as you work through the curriculum. As you're further into your course, you start to remind people what they should know, what they should have done, or what should exist, or a combination of all 3. For example, at this point you'll have set up your green screen, or at this point you will know how to. And you might go so far as to say, and if you haven't set up your green screen at this point, I would encourage you to go back to section 1, lesson 3 and watch it again. So while some people want the holistic view and watch the course start to finish and then go back to the beginning, and that's their prerogative, that's fine. But for those who are planning only to watch it once, it's important that as they work their way through the material, that they've actually implemented the learning along the way. Okay? And the way we do that is we check in with them by clearly stating in our intros, at this point, Sheila, well, you can't say a person's name, but I see Sheila there. But at this point, you will have, or you will know how to, or whatever should be in place at that point, you're reminding them. Okay? That's a great way to hold them accountable, to remind them, because as you get further into the course, they might have forgotten some key pieces. Okay? So it's not about constantly going going over all the content. But whatever is critical, and most of it should be, but the really critical, in other words, what should exist at a particular point in order for them to move forward. An example, at this point you'll have set up your green screen. There's no point in them not continuing with the course about green screens if they haven't bought it and set it up. Because I'm here harping on about where to put the lights and they haven't even set up the screen, worst case scenario. And it would be the same for your online courses. You're going ahead when people haven't done their homework, essentially, even though we don't necessarily call it that in adult learning. But so that's a great part of your intro. It only applies when you're into the course. You can't say at the very first intro you'll remember from, because you've nothing covered yet. So it's only as you start to, as they work their way through the course, can the intros further down the line be updated to include that accountability piece where you're going to check in. Okay? So that provides you then with your intros. And again, you'll cover them in a matter of seconds. Okay? So you have your intro, you have your instructions in the middle, and your outro. And that's, as I say, like a good play, beginning, middle, and end. Okay? Is that making sense, Sheila? Feel free to unmute her if you have any questions.
Yes, that's correct. Really very helpful. Thank you.
Great.
Really helpful with regard to the structure.
Yes.
Because I had no clue about the structure. I was just firing ahead and not very happy with the output.
Okay. Good. I'm glad it's helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So the next piece then is scripting. And I find scripting really useful. Because even if you're not going to use a teleprompter, and if I switch over to the other camera, the teleprompter is this little box here with the camera behind it. So the text goes up in front of the camera, allowing you to read and still maintain eye contact. But even if you're not going to use a teleprompter, scripting out what you're going to cover in the lesson, either in bullet points or the actual word-for-word script, is a useful exercise, because when you proofread it and read it aloud, it helps with your practice, and it gives you an opportunity to reflect and review what you want to say in that lesson before you hit record. Okay? So that you don't waste time essentially having to re-record it or do a lot of editing with it. So speech to text is very useful. There's a number of free and paid options. So for example, for those of you who would use Microsoft Word, if you have the latest version, you'll see up in the top right corner the word or a button for dictate. And if you click that and start talking, it will start typing.
Right.
Okay? If you go into Google Docs, for example, if you don't use Microsoft Word, if you go into Google Docs and you start a new document, there is an option there, File. Where do they move it to? Oh, Tools and voice typing. But there's another one, speech to text format, insert. Oh, it was there. Anyway, I'll look it up again. Insert footnote, drawing, image format. There's an add-on anyway. There's voice typing, but there was a script editor. Anyways, there is the voice typing one. And I look up where speech to text is. I thought I seen it there before. The one I use anyway is voice typing. So you just select that and start talking, click to speak, and allow access to the microphone. And as you start talking, it starts typing. You can see it's typing away there as I'm talking. Okay. And they do say that, I'll just turn that off. They do say that the spoken word is nicer to read than the written word. And the other thing that happens as we're scripting and we're typing, we're thinking faster than we can type, so it does stifle creativity. Okay, so what I tend to do is I use an app called Temi, Temi. There's another one called Otter, which means you can put the earbuds into your phone. I just have the glove on for the tablet here. There was no injury, thankfully. You can plug the earbuds into your phone and walk around the room as if you're delivering the curriculum. And you don't have to get it perfect, because you can proofread the script and edit it. So even if you have to start a sentence again, or even if you're just trying to dictate from your head into the phone so that it's typed up the key points you want to cover, and then you could type them up afterwards. So I find scripting video lessons is really useful, particularly for the middle piece, because you might type up all the intros you're going to use and all the outros you're going to use, bar the key takeaways, and then cut and paste them into the script. But it's the middle piece where you walk around the room and you're thinking out loud, you're imagining, if you like, the students there in front of you, and you're sharing the key things. And I find, walking around, I find anyway a little bit more creative. The energy's flowing a little bit better rather than being caught with the keyboard. Okay, so that's just a couple of tips there on scripting your video lessons, because today is all about doing them as efficiently as possible, not necessarily as fast as possible because we'd rush them, but to do them as efficiently as possible. So speech to text apps for scripting are really, really good. The next piece then is the actual recording. Okay? And OBS is a great software for recording. It's free with Windows and Mac. I have another 2-hour workshop pre-recorded if you're interested in looking at that. But what it allows you to do, and I use vMix, which is a paid version, and it's even more advanced. But a great format for your lessons is in some part of the lesson that you're on camera. And what a lot of people find challenging when creating an online course is being on camera, delivering the material, maintaining eye contact throughout the lesson, unless they have a teleprompter. And then you have to practice being natural. So for your first course, if you're starting out, a great way to satisfy the need of your students who expect these days to see you on camera is just to do the intro and ideally maybe the outro on camera. So you come on and say, "Hi, it's Sheila here. In this lesson we're going to show you how to do X." And that might be all you do on camera. And you won't need a teleprompter because you just practice that one sentence. You look down the lens and you go, "Hi, it's Sheila here. In this lesson, we're going to show you how to do X." Now, if you can say more than that, great. If you can do the entire lesson direct to camera, not looking away or anything like that, then great. But when you're starting out, it's a great way to get started, because then you just switch to slides or presentation and you continue to deliver and to narrate over them, because they've seen you at this point. You've satisfied to a certain extent the need for them to see you. Back in the olden days of creating online courses, you'd see a picture of the instructor and they'd go through slides and diagrams and you'd never see them on camera. But that day is gone. Your students these days expect to see you quite a lot on camera, but when you're starting out, this satisfies the need. Then you go down through your presentation. with energy and engagement and excitement and all that good stuff, and you cover your middle piece, the instructions that we talked about, one problem, one solution. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to take this mouse apart. The importance of doing this properly is you won't break the mouse, or whatever the one problem, one solution, the benefits, you can deliver that with your slides. And then for the outro, you come back on camera. And you do as much of the outro as possible. But for now, when you're starting out, you might just have your standard outro or a variation. You might just say, and remember, if you have any questions, comments or feedback, please use the members area below this or indeed any lesson, and I will personally reply. And I'm not suggesting you record that and stick it on the end, because even if you say the same words but re-record it every time, it'll look slightly different. You might even have a different hairstyle or different clothing. So I would suggest you do record that every time, as opposed to doing it once and sticking it on the end, particularly if you have different clothes in the other lesson. It just looks a bit lazy. But it allows you to come back on and they go, oh, the student will go, oh, there they are again, because they do want to see the white of your eyes, to build trust and to know you're there, and to make them feel like it's almost like being in the room with them, and that you're a supporting instructor and trainer. So you come on and do the intro, direct to camera, count down 3, 2, 1 in your head, so that you don't hit record and jump straight into it. Gives you a time to cut it off at the beginning. So you come on and you go 3, 2, 1. You wouldn't say it, but hi, it's Sheila here, and in this lesson we're going to show you how to take this mouse apart. And then slides. The first step in taking this mouse apart is to turn it over and whatever. If you have any questions about this or indeed any lesson, please use the members area below this video and I will personally reply. And that's the beginning, middle and end from a production point of view. Now, if you do get OBS or indeed Camtasia, or in my case vMix, I can do that in one take without breaking eye contact because of the switch that I have here. Or you can program your keyboard to do the same thing. So 0 could be camera on and 1 could be camera off. So if we go back and do it in real time, now this is how I record my lesson. So eye contact, deep breath, no lip smacks or anything like that. 3, 2, 1. Hi, it's Johnny here, and in this lesson I'm going to show you how to set up a green screen, the importance of a green screen, and so on and so forth. And in the next lesson we'll show you how to stand when using a green screen, and if you have any questions, comments or feedback, please use the members area below this or any video and I will personally reply. In one take, if you do get OBS or vMix or Ecamm, otherwise, which isn't the end of the world, but I'm all about efficiency, because when it takes more time than people thought, they tend to put it on the long finger, or worse still, give up. So if you do get OBS or vMix, it allows you to do what I just did in one take. Prior to this setup, and it's only OBS really to get going, which is free, and program the keyboard where 0 is camera on and 1 is camera off. On, off, or different cameras if you want. But you don't need, and that's all with one camera. It means that you don't have to record an intro, save it, record the middle piece and save it, record the outro and save it and stick them all together. Now that's totally fine. However, it's even better when you don't have to do that amount of work. And a lot of course creators, that's how they do it when they start out. But I'm all about, with an extra little bit of learning and direction and a bit of patience, being able to go intro, slides, outro in one take without breaking eye contact. Because when you get to grips with OBS or vMix or whatever solution, the next type of lesson is intro, slides, but you're there, and outro. Okay? So intro, you're there with the slides, and outro. That's the next step up. And you wouldn't necessarily have to do that in every lesson. So an example would be intro, you and the slides, and then disappear and start to use the slides as your script. Otherwise, if you're using slides and you're in the slides and you're trying to make eye contact and look down at what bullet point you're on, it's a lot. Now your script in your teleprompter could have a little note to say next slide, next slide. You don't read it, but that's so you just know to click with your finger on the keyboard without breaking eye contact. Because I can't see what's written on that screen even though it's just below, because I'm focusing right down the lens. But the ability with OBS or vMix and your keyboard, or if you wanted to get this additional piece of equipment that I have here, the Stream Deck, which is €150, you can program the buttons. But for starting out, you can still make a fantastic course by being on camera with the intro, without a teleprompter. Just introduce the lesson and then go to slides with lots of diagrams and big font, one bullet point per slide. Don't overwhelm people with lots of text. In fact, some people would say have the text that you're going to read on the slide, just not all of it. And some people say, sure, you're only reading from the slides, and it's so there's different schools of thought. Some experts would say that as people read and listen to what they're reading at the same time, they're a lot more likely to remember it. So you can use sentences on your slides, but you might elaborate slightly so that not everything that you say is on the slide. Okay? And that recording then, when you get that process down, intro on camera, switch to slides, outro on camera, they're going to see you not 2/3 of the time, even though it's twice in a lesson, but they'll see you for a couple of seconds at the beginning and a couple of seconds at the end of every single lesson. It will significantly satisfy the need of your students to see you on screen. Because if your entire online course is this slide after slide, bullet point after bullet point, even using something like Prezi, it's not enough anymore. If you went to a concert, whoever, I don't know, who's your favourite singer, Sheila?
Claudia Boyle.
Who?
Claudia Boyle.
Okay, so you can imagine going to see her live and somebody just puts on Spotify of all her music. You'd be like, where is she? I could do this at home. So gone is the day where we can hide behind the slides. A little bit of practice on camera, but even just to come on and say one sentence and the sentence is what the lesson is about. In this lesson you're going to learn X. One sentence. If you can do more, and you will be able to do more when you do one sentence over and over in each lesson. You'll get better at it. You'll come in someday and you'll say 2 sentences. Hi, it's Sheila here, and in this lesson you're going to learn how to set up a green screen. The benefit of a green screen is you can customize your background to your own liking, particularly if you're working in a confined space. And then you go to slides, and you'd be surprised the next day or a week later when you're making more lessons, you're halfway through it and you realize you've done it all on camera, or you're part of the presentation. But starting out, it's a really nice video where it's easier for you to create and still ticks the box for the student where they see you on camera. Okay? So we'll take a break for a few minutes. We'll be back at, just looking at the clock here, we'll be back at 15:15. I meant to take a break at 10 and be back at 10 past. So we'll be back at 15:15, okay? I'll set a little timer there for you to see, get some water, take a stretch, and in the next section we will look at pattern interrupt, energy and engagement. Okay, so see you at 15:15.
Right. Thanks a million.